So in this video, I'm going to be looking at the problem of health anxiety, and I'm going to take you through the 5 behaviours that you absolutely need to change if you're going to overcome the problem of health anxiety, which is also sometimes called hypochondria or hypochondriasis. Health anxiety is a type of anxiety in which we find ourselves to be preoccupied with the threat of severe physical illness and potentially death. Often, people with health anxiety find themselves experiencing a persistent, elevated level of anxiety and find themselves fixated on problems around kind of catastrophic health outcomes, such as, say, cancer, having a stroke, severe heart disease, and things like that. How we understand health anxiety in a cognitive behavioral framework is that a lot of the behaviors that people will do to get rid of the risk of their severe health concern coming true tend to maintain the actual anxiety itself. Okay, so a lot of the things that people do in response to thoughts around illness tend to not necessarily change anything about whether they've got a severe illness or not, but they contribute to maintenance of this anxiety that is always ongoing. So in this video, I'm just going to take you through the 5 key behaviors and also an attentional process that we need to change to overcome and break that pattern of health anxiety. Okay, so the first behavior that we seek to change in cognitive behavior therapy for health anxiety is the role of symptom checking. So what happens in health anxiety is that people will find themselves excessively and repeatedly checking the areas that they associate as being symptoms of the sign of severe illness. Now, there are a couple of problems with this. The first is that when we selectively attend to a certain area that we associate as being a symptom of illness, and we start to kind of look at it a lot, we might kind of touch it, we might kind of check and things like that. The first thing that can happen is it can then lead to the development of things which might then be further interpreted as signs of illness. So, for instance, if we are continually checking, say, an area, say, for lumps, say the breasts or the testicles or another part of the body, if we are persistently checking for it and kind of handling those areas, sometimes we might start to develop a little bit of redness. We might start to develop a little bit of soreness, a little bit of irritation. And then that leads us to, again, misinterpret what it means to actually have that. We forget about the fact that it is probably being caused by us overly checking. And as a consequence, we then interpret this new redness, this new tenderness, this new soreness as being an indication that there is something potentially catastrophically wrong with our health. Another problem is that we can be prone to simple misinterpretation of normal phenomena, normal aspects of the areas that we are checking, and misinterpret them as being signs of the catastrophic illness that we fear. So there are all sorts of normal lumps and bumps and sensations and discolorations throughout the body. And often, because we are checking persistently, we can just misinterpret and even just kind of signs of change there. If things change from one day to the next, which might actually be normal, we can misinterpret those kind of changes as evidence there that there's something catastrophic going on with regards to our health, which contributes to maintenance of that health anxiety. And the next thing that we need to change in overcoming health anxiety is the role of selective attention. So, if there are certain things that we attribute as being an indication of illness, if our illness concerns are about things which aren't necessarily observable, visual, then we will selectively attend to the areas of the body that we associate with that sign of illness. So, for instance, if we are concerned with, say, having a stroke or some form of intestinal cancer or maybe heart disease or something like that, we will then attentionally focus on those parts of the body where we believe there to be some indication of risk. And again, similar problems apply with that. So again, there are always going to be natural variations and natural changes in the physiology of the body. There's always going to be, different kind of aches, pains, twinges, pressures, all that kind of stuff that occur throughout the body normally. Now, one of the main functions of our brain and our mind is that it is actually actively filtering out a lot of the sensory information that we experience on a day-to-day basis. It would be overwhelming for us to be able to pay attention at all times to every bit of sensory information that is available to us in the body. And what that means is, so for instance, if we really pay attention to it, I can pay attention right now and notice sensations that might just be at the very tip of the elbow, or just might be, at the base of my back or at the tip of my fingers. And ordinarily, I wouldn't even pay attention to any of those sensations. But with health anxiety, the preoccupation with a specific body area means that I pay attention to things that are actually probably there all of the time. And again, just like with the role of excessive visual checking, I am likely then to misinterpret these normal physiological experiences, these normal things there that are part of my body's natural functioning, as further evidence of the fact that there is something potentially wrong with my body. I am overestimating that threat based on normal, natural variations in physiological experiences. So what we seek to do in terms of addressing this in CBT for health anxiety is just to start to become aware of the fact that we are selectively attending to certain parts of the body and noticing things that are just there and just normal. So a good intervention for this, commonly what I encourage people to do, is I will get them to hold their hand out, and we would spend a little bit of time just kind of selectively attending to, for instance, say the back of the hand to begin with. And we would just kind of ask a couple of little questions there. And, what do we notice? Do we notice any temperature? Do we notice any aching, any tingling, any pressure on any aspects of that part of the hand? What do we notice about that we didn't notice before? Are there any areas of intensity, any areas which feel slightly less pleasant than others? And then we might also start to look at maybe the fingertips and notice any tingling, any sensation, any heaviness that might be there. And then just focus on any other areas of the hand there, which kind of we notice anything there which might be misinterpreted as evidence that there might be something wrong, etc. So if we notice maybe a little bit of achiness or a bit of tingling, we say, well, what might be causing that? And we notice the natural capacity there for us to maybe misinterpret it as, maybe there's something wrong here on some level. Okay. And we might also then draw attention to some parts of the body that we are preoccupied with as part of the health anxiety. So, say, for instance, if we are concerned with, say, intestinal cancers or bowel cancers or something like that, and that's where our selective attention goes to, so, okay, well, let's bring our attention to that area and let's notice what's there. Notice those areas that feel a little bit more intense. Notice those areas that might be interpreted as being problematic. And we could just say, okay, well, what do we think is causing that? How do you feel about that? And just kind of exploring the role there of actually selectively attending to this particular area, and then our interpretation of what could be going wrong in relation to that, and how that makes us feel in terms of our anxiety. We're able to kind of really highlight the role and problem with selectively attending to body areas as part of the maintenance of our health anxiety. So this next one is where people, and it's probably how you've come across this video or come across my website, what people tend to do when they are concerned with health related issues, when they've got health anxiety, is they might start going on the internet and using Google or other search engines as a way of researching what their symptoms might actually be. And again, there are a couple of difficulties with this in terms of how this contributes to the maintenance of health-related anxiety. The first one is that when we Google our symptoms, for instance, why have I got a headache? We're not just going to get normal, justifiable, kind of natural explanations. We're also going to get things which can be interpreted in much more of a catastrophic way. So, for instance, there are many, many different causes as to why I might have a headache at this point in time. I could have had a bad night's sleep. It could be a little bit dehydrated. I could be a little bit stressed and anxious, leading to a kind of a tension headache and things like that. So when I Google, why do I have a headache? I'll probably come across some of that information. But I will also come across other information which might say, you know what, you need to go and get that checked out by the doctor. You could be about to have a brain tumor, a stroke, and all of that kind of stuff. And what we will then do, rather than kind of pay attention to all of this other more benign and likely explanations for our health related, for our headache, for instance, I will again, because we overestimate threat in all of the anxiety disorders, we kind of do it naturally. We have an inherent negativity bias. We will tune into those more catastrophic representations of what our problem might be. So straight away there, Googling our symptoms kind of activates and maintains this possibility. Do you know what? It might not be a headache this time. It's been not might just not be something that is normal, but it actually might be something a lot more catastrophic. The other problem with Googling symptoms is that it doesn't really allow us to engage in a full diagnostic process. So, what I mean by that is when we do go to a health professional, we are part of a process of diagnosis, which kind of starts at the top of how quite broad range of possibilities of what our problem might be. And through careful questioning, through monitoring from this health professional, through diagnostic measures, tests, and careful evaluation, they're able to narrow down those options. And sometimes it might take a little bit of time. They're able to narrow down those options to give us a close representation of what our problem might be. And one of the problems with going on the internet to find out about our symptoms is that we're not going through this process. We are prone to getting misinformation. We are prone to, listening to people online who don't necessarily provide reliable information. Health related forums, for instance, are always going to show us that those kind of story of some time where maybe a medical practitioner got it wrong or people aren't believing the medical practitioner. And so what Googling our symptoms does is it kind of, again, leads to a misinterpretation and maintains that misinterpretation of what our symptoms might not be. So again, if we are using the information on the internet, if we are Googling our symptoms, it leads to all sorts of different factors which contribute to maintenance of our health anxiety. So absolutely the first thing I say to my health anxiety clients at our first meeting is, do you know what, we need to ban Google. Yeah, we need to ban Googling our symptoms and see what happens to your anxiety as a consequence. Okay. And the first thing that we notice when the client comes back the following week, if they have been successful in banning that Googling activity, they notice a change in the anxiety. The anxiety reduces. It's a quick win. So, absolutely, if you are struggling with your health anxiety, the first thing you can do is resist that urge to go online and check out what your symptoms might or might not be. Now, when we think a little bit about the role of seeking reassurance in health anxiety, again, even though it gives us a sense of relief in the short term, it's something which is counterproductive and unhelpful for us in terms of the maintenance of our health anxiety overall. So, just a little reflection, how do you feel when somebody gives you reassurance that everything is okay? In the short term, you probably feel okay, you might feel a sense of relief. Right? So, in the short term, that relief that we experience through getting that reassurance that things are okay is quite pleasant for us and makes us feel good. It gives us relief from the health anxiety. The problem with it, however, is if our health anxiety is based on a misinterpretation of our illness, whether we are ill or otherwise, the reassurance that we get in the short term is not necessarily always long lived because there's always another what if in terms of our health anxiety. The use of reassurance kind of becomes a way of regulating our access and relief in response to our anxiety overall. So it kind of starts getting repeated. And when we seek reassurance from a number of different sources, whether that be friends, family, medical professionals, across the whole spectrum of medical professionals, we're always going to get different representations of what our problem could be. Okay. What that means is we might get a health professional who goes, do you know what? It's okay. It's just a headache. You've got nothing to worry about. We might seek a second opinion because of our desire for reassurance. And we see another medical professional go, well, do you know what? It looks like it could really be just a normal natural headache. But you know what? Maybe we should just get some tests just to be sure. So straight away, the distinction, the fact that we've got two little bits of different information from our health professionals kind of creates a little bit more doubt and increases the need for us to access reassurance, maybe from either another health professional or from somebody else or from going on the internet. The more we seek reassurance, the more we get variety in terms of how people respond to us, in terms of our health anxiety, and the more we then become reliant upon that process of needing more and more reassurance. So then, the use of reassurance seeking in the short term, even though it might just give us a little kind of whisper of relief, as I said, it contributes to maintenance of our anxiety and then facilitates further doubt, literally in the sense of, well, why did that person say this to me? Why is this other health professional saying that? Okay? So all of a sudden there, we can't even really rely at that deeper level upon what our health professionals are saying to us. Okay? So we want to minimize, again, the use of seeking reassurance as a way of dealing with our health anxiety. Lastly, the other behavior that we need to drop is that of avoidance. So it is natural when people have health anxiety concerns to engage in certain patterns of avoidance. So they might avoid things which simply activate the health anxiety thoughts that are external. So for instance, there could be, I don't know, certain adverts on TV or things in media relating to people, having severe and catastrophic illness, people having cancers, strokes, heart disease, etc. So simply because of the fact that this media activates the health anxiety, thoughts about illness, and the anxiety that comes with it, we then start to avoid different things in our environment simply because we don't want to experience that anxiety. We don't want to get caught up in the pattern of preoccupation and all the behaviors that come with it. The consequence of this is that basically our pattern of functioning, the level of functioning that we previously enjoyed, it becomes more and more narrow, and we're not getting the opportunity to do what we call habituate to our exposure to normal things in our environment. If we think a little bit about this and we consider how often health related information is presented to us in the media, in our lives in general, we're always going to be exposed to stories of people becoming unwell, people, charities looking for funding to support people if they do become unwell. We're always going to be exposed to stories about people dying, etc. The more and more we start to kind of limit our exposure to these things, the less likely we are to be able to deal with them on an ongoing basis. So we're not actually getting the opportunity to habituate to these normal factors in our environment, and our life just becomes a lot more limited. We're not able to do as many things as we used to do. We're not able to enjoy things in the way we used to do, and we're not really doing anything about whether we've got something wrong with our health or not. We're just maintaining our anxiety and just not living the type of life that we really want to live. The other aspect of avoidance to be aware of in health anxiety is the avoidance of actually seeking some form of medical help. So we have already talked a little bit about how excessive reassurance seeking from medical professionals might be a feature of health anxiety, but also in some cases people might avoid getting help from medical professionals simply because they are fearful of confirmation of their health related fears. Now, again, whereas this can make sense, actually, well, if I don't find out about it, then, I don't have to deal with the reality of it. The downside to it is it could also be something there that, we're never really definitively finding out whether our health concerns are correct or otherwise. Therefore, that maintains our anxiety. But it can also become, increase our possibility of experiencing illness simply in the sense that we're never getting exposed to a full diagnostic process. We're never actually finding out whether there is something wrong with us or not. We're always still sitting with that uncertainty and using all of the unhelpful behaviours that we've already listed as a way of just managing our distress. Okay? So really, we want to kind of, in a very structured way, when people are experiencing avoidance and say they haven't been to their medical professional for such a long time and they are concerned with something health related, it's like, okay, we need to really overcome that. We need to give you the tools to experience, to be prepared to experience whatever anxiety comes with that, and then just to take the steps to make that first appointment and engage in the process of diagnosis without actually over relying on excessive reassurance seeking. So we do that in quite a structured way. And really it's just a way of kind of getting rid of, minimizing any of the anxiety associated with not finding out, either disconfirming or confirming what our health anxiety concerns are about. So what I've covered here are 5 of the main kind of behavioural aspects that we target in a health anxiety treatment in cognitive behavioural therapy. There are other cognitive interventions that we employ, things like what we call theory A, theory B, which I will cover on another video. This is just to really give you a flavour there, just again, even if you can't access psychotherapy, that the behaviours that you can seek to drop that just might make you start to feel a little bit less anxious about your health. If you want to get some CBT either from me or some of my colleagues, or if you just want to find out a little bit more, then of course you can contact me at www.accesscbt.co.uk, or you can write some comments in the box below. Please subscribe if you are interested in this kind of stuff, if you're interested in finding out more about anxiety, depression, positive psychology and trauma and all the other stuff there that I'm posting videos about. I hope you have found this video helpful, and thank you very much for watching.